Please go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, my name is
You can look at the
Ballard
camera.
Martz.
And please tell us about the installation we have here, and what it's about, and how you started to work with it.
So the large installation, wall installation, is called Danger of Nostalgia in Wallpaper Form, and it's in this installation it's 132 wire coat hanger forms that I have.
Should we walk over there?
Sure.
Let's go do that.
Sure. That I've bent into the female reproductive system. So it's a piece about reproductive rights, and in particular about access to safe and legal abortion, which is being chipped away at constantly by the current administration.
And so by nostalgia, you're talking about maybe the desire to go back to the way things were?
Exactly. So it really was a response to Make America Great Again, and the idea that at some point in the past things were better than they are now, and wondering when was that? When did people think that was a better time period? And since abortion rights are being chipped away at, it felt as though part of that Make America Great Again, is this nostalgia of when maybe women were kept at home and didn't have reproductive rights and didn't have a way to be out in the workforce and claim their autonomy over their bodies.
And also, oddly enough, I was thinking about it in more of a terms of like a Freudian sort of return to the mother and the reproductive system as a sort of a site of as a nostalgic site.
Sure.
And but not necessarily sure if that actually fits in with the word.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm certainly open to lots of interpretations. And the color that I chose was actually as I was bending these coat hanger forms, and knew that they would be out.
It wouldn't help.
Would start to look like wallpaper, and that was the intention with this installation. Is that I was reminded of William Morris's wallpaper and textiles, even though they don't necessarily reference his botanical inspirations, but it made me think of that, and I was reminded of an article I'd read about him that his family owned an arsenic mine. And at the time, back in the mid-1800s, during British Arts and Crafts, when his work was so popular, they were using arsenic in the pigments.
Oh my gosh.
And that is one of the ways they created these super vibrant colors, particularly the blues and the greens. And so the people who were producing the wallpapers and the textiles were being poisoned, and then the Victorian people who were able to afford these things to have them in their home were being poisoned because it would off-gas when it was damp.
Right.
And also little fibers would come off of the paper and people would ingest them or be touching them. So.
And how does that fit necessarily?
So to me, it was that whole idea of this nostalgia and it being, it's dangerous to romanticize the past. In every time period, there's things that were wrong that we needed to address, and it's that case now too. Focusing on the reproductive rights, and then the whole connection with William Morris was sort of kind of out of left field, and it doesn't necessarily.
But it doesn't take away from it, doesn't detract from it either.
I don't think
another
so.
layer.
So it just adds another layer, and it just is the reason I chose this color. People ask why I chose this color.
Let's go take a look at some of the other ones.
Sure.
I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Yeah, no, fine.
And maybe talk a little bit about some of the conceptuality, some of the ways that you use language in your work, and how, like something like this, and yet you're very, very political, very, very up to date with what's going on in the world, not separate from it.
Right. No, so this piece is called White Terror Alert System, and it's based on the now defunct terror alert system that was used in the U.S. for, it was the red, orange, yellow.
George Bush era.
Right. So in this case, it's skin tones.
Oh, nice.
So the darker the skin tone, the higher the terror level for white people. And so it's trying to call out the racism that, the systemic racism that's in this country, and making people more aware of it, and making, I'm a white woman, I need to be addressing it as much as I can, and hopefully bring it out into the forefront so that we can make changes. I try to be mindful about it because I am coming from being a white woman, but I'm feeling as though I am in a place of privilege where I need to actually do what I can to push things forward. And if I don't talk about it, I think we all need to be talking about it. Right?
And I totally agree with that. I think that right now the most important thing we can do is alliances. I think alliances become more and more important, especially as they begin to use our differences against us.
Right.
And but I do think, I think that's a very strong piece that does that. You want to talk a little bit about some of these, maybe?
So the top piece is called Women's Work is Never Done, and it is sort of sprang out of the other wall installation with the coat hangers. I was looking for coat hangers, old coat hangers, and found this inflatable coat hanger.
Right.
And guessing with the print that's on there is probably, 60s, 70s. And I loved that it looked like underwear.
Uh-huh.
And so when I flip it upside down, it becomes that reference once again to abortion, that people are having to desperate measures if you don't have access to legal abortion. And so then I hand beaded along the pattern that was already there. And the title, Women's Work is Never Done, is that we're still working on this. We're still having to fight for this all these years later. And
even after we thought so much of it had been...
We thought it was over with. Well, no, it's not. And so we have to keep going.
They're trying to get everything back down to ground zero.
Right.
And then their search for nostalgia.
And then the beating being also a reference to, typically stereotypical women's work. So it's all sort of ties in together. And then the stethoscope piece is, it's also... certainly could be reproductive rights, but for me, it's a broader piece. It's more about bias in medicine. Yes. The gender bias, and that there's so much where they're not taking into the differences in women's health and how women their health needs to be addressed in a different way than for men.
So let's talk for a moment about maybe your way of working, the way that you, do you start with an idea? Do you start with the visual?
So
is it a mix?
It's a mix. So I call myself a collector of objects and language.
Yes.
I go back and forth between the two. So sometimes it starts with an object that I find the object and I'm like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. Or sometimes it starts with the language. I keep a list of words and phrases that really appeal to me, and I can go through this and go, oh, I want to make a piece about this. How do I do that? How do I address this in a visual way? So it goes back and forth.
I think we work very, very similarly, you and I, but not to interrupt, this is not about me. But, and I see another one, this one was purchased?
Yes.
Nice. It seems like a lot of them. Is it okay if we look at some of the ones that they just sold?
Of course.
That I think are absolutely amazingly beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And remind me a little bit of, do you know Joseph Beuys?
Yes, absolutely.
And some of the stuff. I love the way that you handled materials. And that installation that you did, I never got a chance to see it. But it was so amazing in all the photos but maybe to talk a little bit about your use of materials, because there's a very strong materiality to your work.
Right. So, these pieces are all from U.S. flags, vintage U.S. flags. So the two smaller pieces are, the one on the left is white stripes. It's deconstructed a U.S. flag, took the white stripes and some of the red stripes, and then wove them together to make this, what I call a safety cross, but a first aid. It's called First Aid for USA. And then the other one that's sort of tucked behind the target piece, I first removed the color from a U.S. flag. So those would have been alternating red and white stripes, but I removed the color to make it all white. And then I took a red stripe and unwove it. So those are the threads from one red stripe that are then in the center of that.
Have you ever filmed any of your process? Some of this would make amazing performance art.
It could, but some of it takes so long.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, durational. But anyway, I just wanted to say I have loved your work for such a long time.
Thank you.
And it's amazing to finally get a chance to talk to you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us, and hopefully we'll do an even longer version of an interview sometime. But it was a pleasure meeting you. A pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you so
it.
much.
Okay.